Hey, it's Andy Yanez, and welcome to another episode of Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian family. Big shout out to them for being the primary sponsor of Let's Rage Coogs, the unofficial postgame show of Houston Cougars basketball and football for the remainder of the men's basketball regular season and into the American Athletic Conference postseason tournament. Once again, you are watching and or listening to Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian family. Joining me, as always, Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review. Day on Dunlap. We are coming off the heels of yet another victory for the Houston Cougars men's basketball team. Number 3 Houston Cougars in both the AP poll and the coaches poll. And this time, they started off the American Athletic Conference play. Make sure you add that note. This is going to be the final time ever having an American Athletic Conference opener, because next season will be the Big 12, with a bang, with a dominant victory over Tulsa, 89-50 over the Golden Hurricane, and really a spectacular shooting night, top to bottom across the board. From really anyone that played had there's a good chance if you were wearing Houston, you had a very good shooting night. Overall, as a team, they shot 36-61 from the field, which was 59% from the field. When you look at it from a percentage standpoint, top to bottom, this was just a lights out shooting performance for Houston. And after a bit of a slow start on defense to start the game, where Tulsa was able to kill Houston, specifically in the paint, they first 8 points of the game were from in the paint points. Houston was able to batch and down or they were able to stiffen up on defense. I was going to go with a different type of analogy. And long story short, they completely shut down the Golden Hurricane. But Kris, I'll toss it over to you first. What your main takeaways and just overall in Houston's conference opener against the Golden Hurricane?
You touched on a few of them. They started 2 for 7 from the floor, so the offense just out of sync, and the defense communication wasn't good. And I got a chance to listen to Coach Sampson's post-game press conference, and he touched on it. And he said, I wasn't going to say it, but he singled out Jarris Walker, and then later on it was Javier Francis. They just seemed to be off on how to defend the high screen and roll, what to do with it. So Tulsa got a couple dunks on that early, and later on in the game, Javier was kind of not on the same page as the rest of the guys. So Tulsa got some buckets that way. But other than that, they clamped down on Tulsa. They showed they're the better team. They got the offense rolling, balanced scoring from everybody. Emanuel Sharp came off the bench, got 3 triples and some foul turnovers, whatever. But he, all around game, you saw Emanuel Sharp, good and bad. Then Juwan Roberts got points. Everybody got points. So it was good to see a balanced scoring performance, and the team with the more talent did not take Tulsa for granted and got the dub easily in dominating fashion.
Yeah, real quickly down before we go to you, the funny soundbite that Kelvin, we're going to hear it. That's one of the clips I have queued up. He talked about when he called the first time out, he wanted to pull Jarris Walker's ears just in terms of frustration on the defensive side of the ball. But down, what were your takeaways from Houston's conference opener against Tulsa?
To me, it seemed like it was just about player development, particularly with the young players. They played a lot of minutes, and what that does is bench development. I mean, the starters are still developing their chemistry, but their chemistry seemed really well today. They moved the basketball. Tramon got the team off to a good start with his playmaker ability, then his ability to make shots, whether it's mid-range, shot it well from the 3. He's still developing, but overall, my overall takeaway was just development from the young players. You see Terrence's ability to isolate and score in isolation situations. Emanuel showed his shooting ability, in which he is a shooter. I think we can really classify him as a shooter now, and kind of really just highlights to me that that this team needs shooting coming off the bench, which is what he brings. Why Coach Sampson made that adjustment and bringing him off the bench. The first guard off the bench, because of when he's on the floor with the other guard, whether it's Marcus, Jamal, or Tramon, they all have the ability to break the defense down off the dribble. And with someone on him, every scouting report is going to say run him off the 3-point line. And what that's proven now is going to keep the floor spread. Now he can collapse the defense, which he showed his ability to drive and score, finish through contact. And so I think he's more than just a shooter, but as the season goes on, he continues to get his opportunity. Show his full development, offensive development, offensive arsenal. But I think development was the huge key. Continue to develop, especially with the bigs. Kris touched upon it. Coach Sampson is going to touch upon it in the post-game press conference. But I like the dominating win. That's one thing I took away. You came out, you're supposed to dominate, and they dominated.
Yeah, they're supposed to dominate. And specifically in regards to Emanuel Sharp, now Marcus Sasser, he had high praise for the freshman guard as well. He called him, when you look at top to bottom of the roster, he said Emanuel Sharp is right up there with Marcus Sasser and Ryan Elvin as the two best shooters on the team, which just coming from right there, your best player on the team, to give high praise to freshmen, that's got to mean a lot for the young player. Now, we're going to get into some clips in a second because we have, Kris, you were able to hear Kelvin Sampson, but we have additional clips from the players that will not be heard anywhere else besides Let's Rage Coogs and, of course, Potsdam Pajama. And maybe one more side outside of that, but not traditional big media, but we'll stick with here when it comes to Let's Rage Coogs. But first and foremost, whether you're watching live on the Houston Raw Ball Review YouTube channel or listening to the audio-only versions the day after, wherever you may be listening. This is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian family. Of course, we'd like to give a shout-out to our other sponsors, beginning with Hoop and Holler, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective, because they've been with us since day one. And really, when it comes to Houston to Hoop and Holler in regards to what they've been able to do from a Star Pizza perspective when it comes to those commercials, the Anthony Jones, we got to play both of them. We got to play the Big Hawk commercial after Houston's bowl game win over Louisiana, because obviously Big Hawk had he had his national spotlight moment off the heels of that game. But, they're doing great stuff with athletes. I've heard that they potentially could have a new commercial airing any day now in regards to a couple of players on the men's basketball team. So big shout out to Hoop and Holler. And I did mention those commercials are for Star Pizza. Star Pizza has multiple locations across the Houston area, and they also like you to visit their online website, starpizza.net, if you just want to check out their menu, or if you're interested in ordering online. If you are in the mood for pizza, because let's be honest, who isn't in the mood for pizza? To go to snack anytime you're in the mood for something to chew on, be sure to do it with Star Pizza. And I think I'm just going on a rant because I'm a little bit hungry too. If you don't see behind me, I am in Tulsa. My hair's a mess, and we're rolling with the punches. And last but not least, during this ad read, we'd like to give a shout out to HOUNIL, because on the topic of name, image, and likeness, HOUNIL.com is a subscription-based name, image, and likeness model that benefits both Cougar student athletes and fans. HOUNIL helps Houston student athletes benefit from the new NIL rules. Athletes create original content in their own words, giving subscribers insight into their lives on and off the court. What the players need is for you to subscribe. Plans start at just $20 a month, and that money goes to University of Houston athletes. Subscribers get one-of-a-kind content straight from the players while helping the Houston Cougars compete on a national stage. Subscribe at HOUNIL.com, and as always, go Cougs. And without further ado, I'm going to toss it over to Kelvin Sampson. Here's what he had to say post-game following Houston's 89-50 victory over the Golden Hurricane in the conference opener.
Just our spacing and ball movement. Our teams over the years have been so unselfish. Multiple guys that can make a shot. And on our team, we talk about this. Like, it doesn't really matter who scores as long as we score. Kids coming up in elementary school and middle school and high school, all they've driven into them is shoot and score. Well, 5 years after your career's over, nobody remembers how many points you scored, but they do remember how many games your team won. So winning is far more important than scoring, and I think that's part of maturing as a player. All our guys had to learn that when they got here, because they were all stars. Much like Eric's kids, all those guys were stars where they came from. And so they're not used to moving the ball and passing the ball, but, we don't negotiate those things. Those things aren't sitting there, and those unarguable points. Our program's all about accountability. I was surprised he only had 16 assists. I thought we had more than that, actually. But shooting percentage there's a direct correlation between shooting percentage and shot selection. And for us, we've played at Oregon, we've played at Virginia, we've played in Fort Worth, we played a bunch of games away from home, and they're all the same to us. Doesn't matter. We play the way we play. We defend, we rebound, we run our stuff, we execute, and we play unselfish. And you do that. And then we have, this is the first team we've had where we're playing multiple freshmen. And Jarius Walker's a freshman. Emanuel Sharp's a freshman. Terrence Arsenault's a freshman. JVA Francis is a 19-year-old freshman. It may say sophomore, but he's a freshman because he didn't get to play last year, but just mop-up minutes. But his future is bright. So it's important that our young guys just keep progressing. Our staff does a great job of player development. Every year in and year out, we have a way we play, and they all buy into it, and it gives us a chance to be successful. Yeah. No, I we started the game off. I wanted to call timeout and pinch Jarius Walker's ear. Obviously, there's no secrets with an offense. They were running a weave to a pick and roll and rolling. You've seen that a few hundred times this year. But for some reason, Jarius was over there guarding this man instead of zoning up. We have certain rules. I'm not going to go through what they are, but we weren't paying attention to doing things. And one thing number 33 can do, he can dunk, especially if you don't guard him. Fellas, who's got the roller? Everybody knew who had it, but one guy. Guess who that was? The guy that was supposed to take the roller. So, but once we got, Richie Chaney, for instance, he started on a Final Four team. Think about it. He was a starting 5-man on a Final Four team. And look at all the teams that team beat with him as our starting center. Last year we had a grad transfer from University of Connecticut, Josh Carlton, who was first team all-conference, and Josh and Reggie played behind him. But in our biggest moments, when I feel like I need to put our veterans out there, a mature group, I always put Reggie. He played critical moments in Charlottesville last Saturday or Saturday before last. He played critical moments tonight, but he has no ego. Doesn't pout when he doesn't get to shoot. Doesn't pout when he doesn't get to play major minutes. He cares more about winning than he does statistics, and I think that says something about our program. Says a lot for all our kids. That's why they value defense. We're not going to win championships with your offense. Your offense is probably a 1-3 night. How many times we're going to score 90? How many points we scored? 89 points. But I think we're leading the nation in field goal percentage defense, and we lead the nation in fewest points allowed. That'll carry you a long way. Some nights the ball goes in, some nights it doesn't. It's not because some of our best offensive execution, some of our best half-court offenses on nights when the ball does not go in. Just didn't go in that night. That happens. Elite 8 last year, we played Arizona, the Sweet 16 game, then we turned around and played Villanova. One night, then we made 10, 11 threes. The next night, we couldn't go in the ocean. It was staying on shore. So it's just the way it goes. The defense and rebounding, playing together, playing hard, all those things I hope.
So there you could hear in the distance, or I guess in the background, like large humming sound. Those were the Houston Cougars celebrating in the locker room. So obviously they had a lot to cheer for after today's win. But there, in regards to that point, when he's talking about Jarius Walker and Dayon, it's something that you brought up in regards to how today really what stood out to you was development. A lot of development, not just for Emanuel Sharp and Terrence Arsenault, but even then for Jarius Walker, and something, it wasn't on that soundbite, but he said that Walker's best basketball, something he said before, is still ahead of him, and he's excited to continue to see him develop. Now, Kris, I remember earlier in the season, I can't remember when exactly Kelvin said it, but he said for freshman, he was talking about Walker specifically. It's kind of like tic-tac-toe. There's X is one day, O is another, and obviously it's much more about, for freshmen, being able to be at that level consistently. And today, Sampson said that Walker's beginning to level off. Now, he still has a bit of up and down performances, but it's kind of the progression. And again, he reiterated the point that Walker's best basketball is still ahead of him. And that whole point right there from the defensive side of the thing, that's something where he said that Walker's still trying to figure out how to impact winning on plays when he doesn't have the ball. And one of those defensive categories that falls into that.
I mean, the Cougs scored 89 points today, and Jarris Walker went 2 for 7. I mean, just think about that. We're talking about a 5-star recruit, one of the highest rated, coming into the program in a long, long time. The team, he didn't shoot the ball well, did not rebound the ball. I think he had 0 offense rebounds, and they still scored 89 points. So he does not have to score, be the main option on this team for this year. So that's why you got Marcus Sasser. You got sometimes it's going to be Tramon Roberts. Sometimes it's going to be Tramon Mark, Emanuel Sharp. So Jarris Walker is trying to, we've touched on it on almost all of these shows, trying to fit in and get comfortable in his skin and where he fits in offensively and defensively. Tonight, they did not need his points. Come Saturday against UCF, they might need him to score more points. And Taylor Hendricks for UCF is a top freshman in the conference, so he might take a personal in that matchup, which might get him more motivated in that game. But tonight, he didn't have it offensively, and they still won by 39 points.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Aaron.
No, I was going to say, I think early on we talked about how we were seeing him adjustment into the defensive system. I think that showed again tonight, and more than that, it's just being 100% locked in on every single possession. I think that's what Coach Sampson demands. That's what the culture demands, and that's what the leaders in the team demand, is be locked in on one accord on what the assignment is defensively. But offensively, watching the game, it made me think about what Coach Sampson meant when he said, imagine if we had Jarris 2 or 3 years in this program, how good he would be. And I started to think there's moments when he has the ball and he's showing his elite ball handling, and he has a moment to put his shoulder down into the defender and create space using his physicality, in which he just plays with finesse, in which I think if he played with Houston more, they'll bring that dog out of him even more to where he can use his physique and his strength to be more powering, and then mix in at it with his skill and his ability to create off the dribble, because with his size and his skills, he could do that really, really well. And so, but I still think there are games and in times where they can bring that out of him. But if he was in the program more, I think you'll bring that consistently. And a la Quentin Grimes, when he first got here, he wasn't consistently every night coming in with like, I'm gonna kill you whether I miss my first 4, I'm gonna keep shooting until I make my next 5 or whatever. He was coming in with that dog mentality, and early on he wasn't like that, and the program helped bring that out of him. I think they could do the same thing for Jarris. But other than that, man, I really love the ball movement. I love how Jamal push the pace, control the pace, especially in transition. I really love when this team plays in transition. I think with the way that they can shoot the ball, the way that everyone can finish around the rim, no matter who's on the floor, I think that's a extra tool that they can use to not make the game so hard and make them to have to execute in the half-court set. But overall, I think this team is really just headed in the right direction. I think Emanuel's confidence is through the roof right now. And I think it's going to continue to grow as he continues to make more and more impactful plays.
King Jaja's comment right here where he says Emanuel started the run with his three-point shooting early. I think there was a stretch. I know he hit back-to-back threes, and he hit 3. He had hit 3 3-point field goals and within 5 minutes that he had played, and absolutely that was a spark. I think that separated. I think it might have been still a relatively close game, and when you look up on the scoreboard, Houston's up double digits after Emanuel Sharp checked into the game. And again, that goes back to what Kelvin has talked about all season long when it comes to freshmen and being able to continue to put consistent performances for the coaching staff to be able to gain confidence in the players. And if Emanuel Sharp can continue to keep doing this, that confidence in him is going to be sky high. Now, I did point it out, King Jaja's comment, because that's going to be something that Marcus Sasser touches on in the post-game clip. But before that, we do need to pay bills. And once again, this is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian family. Like I said at the top of the show, the Saxenian family is a primary sponsor for Let's Rage Coogs throughout the rest of the Houston men's basketball season, for the rest of the regular season, and into the American Athletic Conference postseason tournament. So big thank you to the Saxenian family. And on the topic of our other sponsors, we like to give a big thank you to HOUNIL. As the Cougars move to the Big 12, Houston will be competing with national players in basketball like Kansas, Baylor, Texas Tech, and more. Those schools have fans that have built huge name, image, and likeness groups to get their athletes NIL compensation, and that gives them a huge advantage over U of H, where NIL is still in its infancy. But you can help Cougar athletes by getting involved. Go to HOUNIL.com to subscribe to player-created content like essays, videos, podcasts, and get access to private events with UH players. Players are compensated for creating content, and fans get an inside look at their lives. Like I said, plans start at just $20 a month, and that money helps the Cougars retain players to stay at the top in basketball and to build momentum in football. HOUNIL.com. Subscribers get one-of-a-kind content straight from Cougar athletes. Subscribe today at HOUNIL.com. And we also want to shout out Hoop and Holler, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective. On the topic of name, image, and likeness, like I mentioned earlier in the show, Hoop and Holler, they are the entity behind the Star Pizza commercials. Star Pizza, Houston's best pizza since 1976. Be sure to check them out online at starpizza.net. And not only can you check out their menu online, but be sure to, if you're in the mood for pizza and you want to get it fast on the go, you can also order online. Once again, that's starpizza.net, and be sure to check them out because they have multiple locations across the Houston area. And on that note, I'll send it over to Marcus Sasser and hear what he had to say post-game following Houston's big win over the Golden Hurricane.
Marcus, what makes this team, so selfish, and what worked on off? I think they shot close to 60% on offense.
Just, it's fun when you see everybody, scoring the ball. It's kind of contagious, just making the extra pass, and just everybody just really wanting to win, We don't have not one guy on this team, that's selfish. So it's just fun playing with these guys. And, like I said, it's just contagious when the ball keeps moving and finding an open guy for the open shot.
Is that something that you guys come into the program already with that mindset, or something that they had to teach you guys?
It's kind of both. We all had good attributes, at passing, scoring, but Coach does a good job as putting us all together and making us play as a team. But that just come with practice. So I feel like just us practicing that way, and then it's kind of easy when you go out there in the game to do it because you've been practicing it for so long.
Just having guys like Juwan, Jarius, does that make it more fun to pass?
Yeah, it's much more fun. Them are two bigs that can pass the ball and score the ball. So they vision is like a point guard. So it's really 5 guards on the court. That's why they make passes I ain't even seen before. So it's like you said, it's real fun with them too, playing with them.
One of those players, specifically Tramon Mark, something that Coach was talking about, has really grown as really just being able to make the right basketball play, not necessarily just being a scorer. How have you seen him grow in that aspect?
Like I said, we all came here. We can score the ball. We all had different strengths and weaknesses, but he could also pass. So when Coach just brought it out of him and showed him, that you gonna get the ball back, or they gonna make a play for you to get an easier shot. I think that just clicked with him, and then it was just contagious for all of us. All of us was trying to play kind of one-on-one at the beginning of the season, but it's way more fun than just playing together and getting our other guards open shots like that. So
how do you see Juwan grow offensively? It seems like he's that little hook for him is
right. Just every day he working. Him and Coach Kelvin down there working on his game, post game, mid range game. It's just finally paying off. Everybody's seeing it.
Emanuel's shot, 3-point shot, I feel like every time he shoots, it's like the same motion every time.
Yeah, he a great shooter.
Yeah.
Him and I feel like he right there with me and Ryan. He put the same amount of work in as us, so that's no surprise for me to see him. And like you said, every time he shoots the ball, I think it's going in.
Yeah.
What does his instant offense give you guys sort of a lift off the bench?
I feel like it's real important. As you can see today, he kind of gave us a big spark. He really started to run for us. He had 3 threes, and then everybody else started getting going. So it's real important to have him come off the bench and be an instant offense player.
One more question on Emanuel. What do you think his potential is?
I think he's young. He's very coachable. And, he listens. So I think his potential is through the roof, really.
There, you heard it right there. Really, the only place you're going to hear it first in regards to Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian family. That clip right there from Marcus Sasser post-game following the Cougs' big win over the Golden Hurricane. But on the topic of Marcus Sasser, he touched on a lot of different key areas. I want to start with what he said at the beginning in regards to the ball movement and really how there's not one selfish player on the team, and they just continue to feed off of that once the ball gets rolling and they start seeing shots fall in, especially shots that are being set up by other teammates.
It's a great point, and I think the more, it's 14 games in, this team has more guys who can score. I'm not sure they have a lot of guys who are great shooters, but they have more versatility on offense than probably the last couple of teams. So when you got guys who can put the ball in the hole, the ball movement, everybody knows who follows basketball. You only get an assist if the ball goes in. Okay, so the Cougs are doing a better job passing the ball. They're not selfish. Players never have been in this program. But when you see the ball go in, you're seeing the assist numbers be higher. So that's a good sign. Emanuel Sharp, and I want everybody to, you said it earlier, and then you heard it from Marcus. He said, Marcus, Ryan, Elvin, and Emanuel are the three best shooters on this team. Okay, so Ryan Elvin can shoot. He may not be a great athlete or anything else, but trust me, you see Ryan Elvin in practice, those three-point shooting drills, Ryan Elvin is right there with Marcus Sasser and Emanuel Sharp knocking down threes constantly in practice. So just be clear on that. And I'm saying this to you, Dayon, you got it in a second. Once again, to the fans watching us on this channel, this is Let's Rage Coogs providing you content you're not getting anywhere else, especially not video-wise, because for whatever reason, the Cougs couldn't provide video of Coach Sampson's press conference. Andy was there. Yes, Andy's in Tulsa. Yes. So got video from Coach Sampson, video from Marcus Sasser, and also in touch on the HOU NIL. Cougs about to go to the Big 12. NIL is here to stay. Many different forms. I'm talking as an alum now, not as a Houston Round Review media member. If we want to continue seeing this program grow and seeing players stay here in the program, retain players, the NIL is a way to do that and help get that done. Let's Rage Cougs, we got plans bigger and better for this going forward. We need you guys support the show, support our sponsors, and then we can keep providing you content that you're not going to get anywhere else. That's just a fact.
It's just facts, like Chris just said. But I want to piggyback up on Emanuel Sharp. Like Chris said, players like Tramon can make threes, but he's not a shooter. He can score. He's a scorer, but not a shooter. I think to Marcus's point, there are three shooters. I still think Emanuel is more of a scorer. I still want to see more of his game, but right now in his role, he's in a shooter's role and he's looking and hunting those shots. And his most impressive three-pointer, in my opinion, tonight was that first one. The quick release, when he got it, no hesitation, quick release, all net. That let me know that he was ready. He was looking and he wasn't passing up no shots. And so as he continues to develop, continues to build confidence, and really got to stay out of foul trouble, because just imagine if this was a closer game in which everyone was off. However the game could have played out, and he could have been that one player who had it going, and we could have really needed him on the floor, and everybody could have been sure, whatever the case may be. So it's more developing, more learning points on him outside of just making shots, in which I'm sure he's done a lot of that at practice to earn his spot outside, as well as doing all the other things that Coach Sampson demands. But man, this team has a good chance. J1 does a great job in his role, running the floor, rebounding, playing with relentless energy, and the team feeds off of it. I think they feed off of his energy, him and Jamal. I think Jamal.
I'll turn off the lights.
Wow.
Don't worry, I'll get the lights back on. I have my own lights. That wasn't supposed to happen because they're still cleaning. But don't worry, while it's a floating head down, you'll get yourself all
just
fixed
make
up.
sure you don't get locked in there, man. That's all.
Yeah.
I will not get locked in. I have my own way out. But
Oh,
Dayon,
cool.
continue
Okay.
your
It's exclusive live. You're not getting this nowhere else, like Chris just said. But yeah, to my point about J1 and Jarris, and he talked about those two ability to pass and their versatility, in which I think it really, really makes this team even more versatile on the offensive end. J1 is kind of a one-trick pony on the offensive end. But he's effective and he stays within himself. He practicing and works on his game, shooting his mid-range, shooting threes at practice, but he still plays inside the 7% of the game. And so I love everything that I'm seeing offensively from this team, the way they move, the way they share. He talked about Tramon and how each player come in with attributes and strengths and weaknesses, and how Coach Sampson gets them to play together, and how Coach Sampson, and he admitted it, how early in the season they were all playing one-on-one basketball, and how Coach Sampson reiterated to them how if you move the basketball, someone's going to give up a good shot for a great shot, and you saw that tonight. And I think games like tonight is going to bode well going forward, because in the game against UCF, they're a good team. UCF only 3 losses on the season. They lost their first game, and then the next 2 losses was to good teams. I believe was to Miami, and their next game loss was to Missouri, who beat Kentucky tonight. And so this is going to be a tough matchup against UCF.
I'm back. The lights are on. I don't know what happened there. Like I said, it wasn't supposed to happen because they're still cleaning here. So maybe it's a cue from the Tulsa Golden Hurricane that they want to kick me out. But we're still rolling along here. And Dan, like you mentioned, in regards to one of the earlier points you mentioned about Emanuel Sharp, and specifically, first shot he took, there was no hesitation. He was ready. He was ready to catch and shoot, let it fly. That's something that Kelvin Sampson had touched on just a few days ago in regards to. It might have been a week ago. It might have been, I lose track of these days, but when it comes to the freshmen, and he was talking about Jarris Walker and Terrence Arsenal specifically, where maybe they're not entirely comfortable being when they were in high school. They weren't necessarily the alpha scorer. They weren't the go-to scorers. Emanuel Sharp, that mindset was completely different coming out of high school. He was that alpha scorer. He was that go-to guy coming out of high school, and that's the little stuff where you're beginning to see right at the gates. When Emanuel Sharp catches the ball, that's one thing. He's going to be ready to shoot. Mm-hmm. And if he gets in the game, he's going to get his shots up. And that's something that's been fruitful for him, because it's allowed him to play really not only with confidence, but go out there and not really have to, maybe at times like we've seen with Walker and Arsenal, where sometimes you can see they're a little bit hesitant. That's not the case with Emanuel Sharp ever.
And Coach Sampson said in his early call this week that every aspect of Emanuel's game is improved. Everything, mm-hmm. Conditioning, shot selection, everything, 3-point shooting. I like this drive and finish tonight in the game against Tulsa. And I'm sound like I'm just giving you guys a lot of credit, but it's well deserved. Pasama Jamma, you guys interviewed Emanuel Sharp when he committed to Houston, correct?
Yeah. Correct.
How many other outlets did that? And folks don't know or don't remember, before he got injured, Emanuel Sharp was probably top 75 and for sure top 100 in the country. And then when he got injured, and he had to sit out a whole year because the injury was really catastrophic.
Yeah.
He fell off the radar. Rankings just forgot all about him. But what program that is known for player development, Houston Cougars, they developed him. He's in shape. He's been here a year basically. With strength coach Alan Bishop. And you're seeing his skill set now that he's in shape. You see, he got buckets in high school. Mm-hmm. Then he got hurt, got injured. Well, he's healthy now and he's in shape. So now he's confident, as Dayon has said, and he's getting buckets. And he's just a freshman, redshirt freshman. So he'll get better, continue to get better, develop his talent and skill set. And when coach signed him, I think I asked him, or Andy asked him, who did he remind him of? And Coach Sampson said, Rob Gray. And we were like, wow, Rob Gray. Well, we're starting to see some of that Rob Gray, Emanuel Sharp right now.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Now, Kris, I want to go to you just on the topic of ball movements that Marcus Sasser touched on at the beginning of that clip. That's something that Kelvin, he's mentioned, and to add on to the point that Dayon you mentioned, was for when it comes to ball movement, Kelvin's called it a non-negotiable when it comes to his team, something that they've emphasized, especially going back to the earlier games, and something that Sasser touched on a little bit at the beginning of the season. Maybe they're playing a lot more one-on-one ball, and then after that Alabama game, I don't know if you can necessarily call it a wake-up call, but that's kind of been a shift. And tonight, when you look at the assist numbers, they had 16. I'm going to say only 16 because compared to what they have been able to do since that Alabama game, I think every game since then they had where over half of their field goals had been assisted on. That wasn't the case tonight. Now, they made a lot more shots tonight, but still 16 assists on 36 made baskets. That's a pretty good number you'll take. And again, that's something that it kind of flipped the switch since they lost to the Crimson Tide.
They have, and sometimes a loss, you learn from a loss. And they learned, and I think the coaches have probably told them before the game against Alabama, we're better, we have better ball movement, better player movement. Sometimes players need to see it themselves and experience it. And once that happened against Bama, coaches can say, well, see, we told you what makes us a better team. And maybe the guys are like, yeah, coach, yeah, you're right. In the last few games, they've had a better ball movement, better player movement. And they're knocking down shots too. I mean, that's the end of all the passing is they're knocking down shots.
Yeah, Kelvin said it. When the shots goes in, it solves a lot of problems. And I do want to put one up. So we're on the topic of guards. We talked about Emanuel Sharp. King Judge says, can we give Sharp the sharpshooter label now? Sharpshooter label now. It is still
he
too
called
soon
him a sniper. Yeah, he called him a sniper. Yeah.
No, I was thinking that, but and what Kris me and Kris was saying was, when we think sharpshooter Houston, we think Armani, Corey, Quentin, and I can't put him in that category. Now that you switched it to sharpshooter, that's more of a conversation versus sniper. Sniper is different, but I will. He's definitely a shooter. And I go as far and say sharpshooter, King Jaja. I say sharpshooter. I still can't give him that sniper, though. I can't give him that just yet.
Yeah, just yet. And because really,
just yet.
It took Armani a year to become a sniper. You know, next year, he may continue to improve. Yeah, sniper. Yeah. Heck, into this season, he might be developing a sniper, you know, where teams, because Dayon touched on it, he's getting to that point on the scouting report. Run him off the three-point line. Don't leave him open because he can hurt us. He's getting to that point. And then once he does that, we saw him put on the floor and finish at the rim.
Yeah, he had a good
add that to his game. Then teams would be like, well, we just hope he misses. Because what else are we going to do? Because as long as the Cougs have good ball movement and he gets open looks, you're gonna lock him down.
Yeah.
So it's getting to a point of pick your poison with Sasser, Shed, Jarris, Tramon. Oh, and I think we saw it in a comment earlier. Tramon Mark, and you're there, confirm it for us. But Tramon, he's good. He could have gone back in the game, got knee in the thigh. If the game were close, he could have gone back in the game. But I mean, the game was 30-point game when he got hurt, so it wasn't anything serious. It's just recurring.
That's a perfect segue that you mentioned. And you're referencing this tweet that was sent out by the official Houston Cougars men's basketball account. Tramon Mark took a knee to his leg. They had trainer John Houston look at it, and he was good to go in, like you mentioned, Kris. Had it been a closer game, that Tramon Mark actually touched on it post-game, and here's what he had to say about that injury. It's a lingering issue that he's been dealing with.
Your leg knocked or like what?
Oh, yeah, I got hit, and it's kind of been
it's kind of been a lingering thing in my leg, so I just trying to get that taken care of so I can be healthy the rest of the season. But it's something I can definitely play through. But I just want to be healthy.
Is it a bruise or like a?
It's like a knot. It won't.
Knot?
Yeah, it's hard for it to go away.
And you got hit today?
The knee?
Yeah, it got hit today. Well, yeah, it got hit today.
The knee or another part of it?
Nah, it's my quad. Yeah.
Okay, so it's painful.
Yep.
And so in terms of this game, obviously you had the 14 points, I think, that you had, but Kelvin was talking about really how you've grown just in terms of being able to make the right play. That's something that kind of emphasized, not necessarily just being a scorer. How do you feel you've evolved from that aspect just this season, not even trying?
I think the game is actually slowing down for me a little bit. It's just easier for me to make reads, deciding whether to shoot the ball, pass the ball. I think it's getting a lot easier for me. So just going forward, I'm gonna continue to work at it, but I think it's getting a lot easier for me going forward. Yep.
Is this one of the more unselfish teams you've ever played on?
Definitely. Everybody passes the ball. Everybody shares the ball. Everybody gets their touches. So it's definitely fun when you can see everybody shining and eating on one team. It's definitely a good look for the team.
Something I've noticed with you guys, like even on the bench, like it doesn't matter. Like towards the end of the second half, you guys are scoring and like everyone gets up and cheers. How's that something? Because that's part of your identity and culture. How do you guys go about like establishing that?
That's just a team chemistry thing. We all, we're around each other every day. We see each other every day. So just being there, being out on the court, seeing people shine, seeing we're all brothers for us. So when we shine, everybody should just support each other. I think so. That's how it is.
That pull-up jumper you had, have you worked on that?
Oh yeah, that's my shot, man. I know I love the pull-up jumper. So when I see that falling in, when my threes are falling too, just like it was tonight, it's just a good feeling, knowing I have a little bit of the high hand, But yeah, it's a good feeling.
How much more confidence do you have in your threes this year?
I'm a very confident three-point shooter. I think just if I get a good look, I'm going to shoot it. And coach is telling me to shoot the ball too, so that's another thing, But yeah, I definitely have a lot of confidence in myself in shooting the three ball.
Going back to the playmaking portion of how you've grown in that aspect, have there been, I'm sure like all the coaching staff has helped you in that aspect, has there been one that you've worked with in particular just that's helped you in terms of being able to play make, or that stuff that you go over on film? How do you go about that?
I think Coach Q, he's helped a lot, watching film with him, being on the court, telling me what I need to do, what I should do, little reads I should make here and there. It's a good feeling to know that he really has interest in me and taking care of the ball and stuff. So it's just a good feeling.
So, once again, that was Houston Cougars guard Tramon Mark, and we'll get into our final break for this episode of Let's Rage Coogs. I'd like to remind you that this is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian family, the primary sponsor for Let's Rage Coogs, and this is a LRC, #LRC After Dark, because it is past midnight now in the Central Time Zone, where I'd imagine most of our viewers and our listeners are watching, if you're watching live. But also a big shout out to our other sponsors, beginning with HOUNIL. HOUNIL.com is a subscription-based name, image, and likeness model that benefits both Cougar student athletes and fans. HOUNIL helps Houston athletes benefit from the new name, image, and likeness rules. Athletes create original content in their own words, giving subscribers insight into their lives on and off the court. What the players need is for you to subscribe, and plans start at just $20 a month, and that money goes to UH athletes. Subscribers will get one-of-a-kind content straight from the players while helping the Houston Cougars compete on a national stage. Subscribe to HOUNIL.com, and as always, go Cougs. Of course, Hoop and Holler, the Houston Cougars Micro Collective, the entity behind the Star Pizza commercials, which is another sponsor for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. Star Pizza, Houston's best pizza since 1976. Be sure to check them out online on social media, and also specifically their website, starpizza.net, where not only you can check their online menu, but also order on the go. Now, as we wrap things up, because it looks like the cleaning crew is beginning to wrap things up, so I need to wrap it up personally. Tramon Mark, on that clip, again, that's kind of been I don't know if you can call it the story of the season, but that's something that Kelvin Sampson's reiterated throughout the portions of the season in regards to where he needs to grow. We always knew that he could score. That's coming out of Dickinson. That was his strength. He was go-to scorer, and something Kelvin's mentioned before, when he got to Houston, he didn't necessarily know how to pass the ball or to make the right play. And that's been that emphasis from the coaching staff on him. Now he's slowly continued to progress in that aspect. Only had 2 assists in today's game, but he did have good stretches. He had a nice pass to Jawan Roberts that led to a foul at the beginning of the game. I think that might have been one of the opening possessions that started the game. So you're starting to see him grow in that role. What kind of, from you guys' perspective, Leon, I'll go to you first. How have you seen Mark grow overall as a basketball player?
Just picking and choosing his spots. And it was very telling for me to hear him say that the game is slowing down. Because when the game slows down, now he's able to see the floor, see things that are transpiring, how defenses are playing him, and plays on what's to come. You can see and be able to read and react and kind of dictate things offensively, dictate what the defense is doing. And when his mid-range is falling, like he said, then at 3 ball, he really just has the defense at his mercy with his offensive ability. But for me, it's just his knowledge of the game. I think this is the first time since Dickerson that he's played a bunch of minutes in the game. First time starting since back in high school. And so for him, he's still developing, like Coach Sampson says, and his game was about development. I said that at the start. And so for him, just for the game to be slowing down, for him to be a willing passer, in which Coach Sampson said that's non-negotiable. So I expect that. But more importantly, just to know that the game is slowing down for him, and that he's really just getting better as far as making plays, because he's a good playmaker and he can score. I think once he finds his niche, he's really, really going to take off even more, because he's going to have more of a green light, just making more plays.
I think I'm like you, Dan. When he said the game is slowing down for him, that's a great sign, because when players say that, college, pro, if the game is slowing down, that means they're really comfortable. They can see everything. Any defense that comes their way, they're ready to counter it. Offensively, they can see the court. They know what's going on with the teammates they're supposed to be. That's a great sign for him individually and as a team. And you also see how important he is to avoid foul trouble. Because game against Alabama, when he fouled out 8 minutes ago, Cougs offense changed, because that scoring threat was gone. So he has to do a better job of keeping himself in a game and avoid early foul trouble, offensive fouls, know how the refs call the games, all those things. But as the game slows down for him, I think he'll get better at that as well. So 14 games in, first conference game, Wednesday night. It's now Thursday, technically. This team is getting better. Coach Sampson, once again, he it's part of who he is and how he develops programs, teams each year. This team is better in December than they were in November. January is almost here. The goal to be better in January than they were in December. Offensively, this team still has a lot of room to get better.
Yeah.
The defense will be constant, but just imagine the offense getting better. And we're not expecting them to score 89 points a game. But if they shoot 45% and better, this team, this type of team, how many Cougs teams did that combined with their defense? I think this team could be the kind of offensive firepower going forward the rest of this season.
That's a great point. And as we wrap things up here on this edition of Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian family, once again, the final score, the Houston Cougars open up conference play victorious 89. Like you mentioned, Chris, 89 points against the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes, who they held Tulsa to just 50 points. When you look top to bottom, I think interesting. We haven't even been able to talk about Jawan Roberts, and he was the leading scorer for Houston. He had 15 points and 9 rebounds. And again, something I do want to bring in this point as we wrap things up. I asked Kelvin about Jawan Roberts, and again, something that he's mentioned throughout the season when it comes to players gaining their trust, or for Coach Sampson to get that trust in his players. He said that Roberts, he's had that trust in him for going back multiple seasons. Going back, he even mentioned, he talked about a story the year they went to the Final Four, where obviously Fabian White came back into the rotation around February of that season. And Sampson said, and he went to Jawan Roberts and he talked to him, or Jawan Roberts. I'm kind of saying his name like Coach does. it's the Sampson spread, but in regards to, he went to him and he had a conversation with him. We're gonna go to Fabian White, and Roberts was open to it. He said, whatever needs to happen to win. And again, that kind of goes back to top to bottom on the roster, something that Kelvin says, something you heard Marcus Tramon reference. There's not a player on this team that has that selfish mindset where at the end of the day, they want to do what's best for the team. And something that Kelvin said throughout his postgame presser tonight, they don't care who scores as long as the team is scoring. And like you mentioned, Kris, when it comes to the offensive potential that this team still has, it's a bit scary when you think about there is a lot of ceiling left, or there's a lot of room left before Houston can tap that ceiling, especially on that side of the ball.
And I want to say, commend Dayon agree with Dayon when he says this as well. I like the Cougs when they play faster.
Mm-hmm.
Don't settle in the half court, because when they settle in the half court, sometimes it's like it's self-inflicted. When they slow it down too much, you don't have to. Just keep playing faster. And I'm not saying score in transition. I'm saying get down the court quicker.
Yeah.
Before the defense sets up, score within the first 15 seconds of the shot clock, something like that, rather than 25 seconds in, and you give your teammate a grenade and you got to launch up a shot. Play faster, more up tempo. That's a plus. Reggie Chaney, a healthy Reggie Chaney with two good hands, good knees. He's a spark. He's hustling on defense. He's active, and he did not have defensive rotation problems like Jarris did early in the game. Reggie came in, defense, that stuff was over. So he's that safety blanket up front.
Man, every team needs players. What do you need, coach? Players. Houston has a few of them, J1 and Reggie. What you need, coach? And they're going to go do it. Whether it's rebounding, whether it's taking a charge, whether it's hedging on the screen, whether it's rotating, whether it's fouling someone, whatever you need. I put Ramon in there as well. But J1 and Reggie are players on the team that what you need, coach, guys. And every team needs that. And Reggie, man, he played lights out tonight. He per usual. He really been playing like that all season. Whatever the team needs on that night, he's going to give it. He's going to do it at a high level. And his experience just sticks out, really. It's like he's seen every coverage, every screen. He know exactly what it is, what's to do. And so he's definitely the most unselfish player on the team. But one more point to the transition. Another aspect that we really haven't seen, and I think this team and Coach Sampson will give Jarris the opportunity, is getting the ball off the rebound and pushing the break, because he has the ball handling ability and the passing ability. And I think that can unlock even more transition game for this team, because everybody can just run the floor and he can just get it up the court and try to make a play, whether he has the athletic advantage over whoever's guarding him pretty much, or just get the ball to the guard's hands, quick pick and roll, and just make a quick action instead of having to execute in the half-court setting. So it's definitely more levels to get to offensively for this team.
Absolutely. And like I mentioned, Houston came out victorious in their conference opener, 89-50. Houston improves to 13-1 on the season. Since it was a conference opener, they also improved to 1-0 in conference play. Meanwhile, Tulsa, they dropped to 4-8 on the year, and they open their conference record at 0-1. Up next for the Houston Cougars, turnaround to Saturday night, and it'll be kind of a quick turnaround. They played Wednesday night. They won't be getting back into Houston Thursday, so it's a quick turnaround against, like you mentioned, Dayon, a very good UCF team that is playing really well. December 31, that's going to be a 1 p.m. tip-off inside of the Fertitta Center, New Year's Eve for the Cougars. Kris, I'll toss it over to you first. Where can people find you, and any final point that you'd like to make in regards to this game?
Appreciate it, Andy. Yeah, just a couple things. I saw a question, asking us to predict the game against Memphis. We'll do that later. Conference play is here. There's no point in talking about Memphis. Fans may ask about that. Memphis is a good team. They're a veteran team this year, but deal with that later on. The Cougs starts are kind of shaky right now. Not sure why that is. They started slow against Virginia, started kind of slow tonight against Tulsa, and then played better as the game progressed. getting wins. I'm not sure what the reason for the slow starts is, but that's a small little nitpicking thing when you're 13-1. But Twitter, find me at VHR Review, HoustonRoundBarReview.com, Houston Roundbar Review on Instagram, and of course on YouTube, where you guys are watching Let's Rage Coogs shows. And just once again, shout out to Andy for traveling with the team. Did not have airline problems this evening, so made it to Tulsa. Got a locker room. We're in the hallway, post-game comments from players, as well as Coach Sampson post-game press conference. So that's great to see on Let's Rage Coogs and Paul Samajama. So we're trying to do a lot of things that some outlets are not doing. So that's one thing that we're trying to do, onward and upward. So keep supporting us, and we'll keep bringing you content. That's what I got. Thanks, guys.
You can find me on all social media platforms at Dayon Dunlap. Thank you for Andy and Kris for all the great work that they're putting in, covering all Houston sports. They're doing a great job. Thank you for all our loyal supporters, King Jaja, and all the others who's been rocking with us since day one. Really appreciate you guys. Don't take it for granted at all. We wouldn't be able to do what we're doing here without you guys, and we're going to continue to evolve. This is part of the new media, and we want to bring you guys more content. So make sure you guys go out to subscribe to this YouTube channel that we're on, the HRR Review. If I got that right, if I'm not, Kris, correct me. Make sure you guys subscribe to this YouTube channel, also our Paul Samajama YouTube channel, and keep supporting, because we're going to keep going as long as the season is going on and as long as they go.
The Houston Roundbar Review on YouTube, and it's at HRR Review on Twitter. Kris, we need you can correct us. I'll put you back on the screen in a second, but obviously people can find me on Twitter at Yanez_5. Be sure to check out my post-game work. I have an article for GallerySports.com that comes out tomorrow morning. Additional game storyline from this outing between Houston and Tulsa. And like Kris mentioned, onward and upward, and like Dan said, new media. That's a very interesting quote. I believe it was Ray Yormark that said it too. This is part of that new media. You don't need a big budget. If people could see our equipment that we work with, it is not much. It is a I'm gonna go back to full screen so people can see. This is my tripod for my phone, so people can. It's literally a phone. All the video you saw is recorded on phone. I do have this gnarly mic. This mic is probably the most high advanced equipment that I have. But
for now, bigger budget will have better equipment. Yep.
It is nothing that is too out of this world. And like Kris, you always say, doing more with less. We're gonna start trading, Mark. We gotta do the John Rothstein and start printing out shirts. Doing more with less. But on that note, once again, the final score: Houston victorious 89-50. Kris, I'll give you a chance to correct where people can find you on Twitter, because we always butchered it.
No problem at all. It's the HR Review. Some folks say the HR Review. And I'm tossing out there to you guys on the air, because I thought about it earlier today. I'm not sure how often we could do it, but maybe a couple times this season. How about a pregame show? On like a Saturday or Sunday, a pregame show, maybe 30 minutes, get folks some info, some insight that, if they can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
See if we can do a pregame show here and there, and maybe definitely during conference tournament and the NCAA tournament as well. But just putting it out there as well, something else that we could do here on Let's Rage Coogs on the Houston Roundbar Review YouTube channel. I know this for sure. Not too many teams in the Big 12 have pregame and postgame shows. I know one, and that's Kansas. So, hey, why not be the second one? Be with the big boys, do what they do. So, hey, just put it out there.
And if anyone would like to be a sponsor of that pregame show, be sure to reach out to us at letsragecoogs@gmail.com. In all seriousness, that sounds like an awesome idea. And like you said, Kris, especially for those high-end matchups, it'd be crazy. It'd be cool to preview, especially with all the game notes, all the detailed stuff that we are given. We're already there, so we might as well make the most of it. King Jaja is supportive of it. Pregame shows for conference tournament, March Madness would be nice. So, hey, put it out in the universe, so we shall see where we go from there. Once again, the final score: Houston victorious 89-50 in their conference opener. We will see you Saturday, Saturday afternoon for New Year's Eve, Houston UCF, a second conference game of the season for the Cougars. Until then, stay safe. And if you're not in Houston, if you're in the middle of the country, be safe from those roaring winds, because I learned that the hard way when it came to the flight. But Dayon, I'll let you close it out. How do we close it out as always?
Only one way. Go Cougs.